Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 11 of our xAPI cohort. My name is David Kelly. I'm the CEO of the Learning Guild. It's my pleasure to be the host here today for an exciting session where we are going to hear 4 separate examples of projects and how people are using xAPI. So I'm going to just go through a couple of quick updates so that we can very quickly get into those 4 presentations that we're looking forward to today. So what we're going to be doing is, again, we have 4 different presenters here: Jason, Bill, Sarah, and Will. Each of them has about 15 minutes to share their project, what they're working on, and we're going to be looking forward to seeing what they're going to be doing in just a moment. Before we get into that, just a couple of quick reminders about other things that are going on amongst the Learning Guild community. We have our Learning and HR Tech Solutions Conference going on in Orlando later on this month. Takes place April 23rd to 25th in Orlando. We're looking forward to that event. Hope to see you there. If you haven't already registered, registration is still open. You can go to learninghrtech.com for details there. Registration closes soon, so if you do plan on joining us, make sure you get that registration in. Also want to mention our next online conference. We're excited about our online conference taking place in June. It's the Science of Learning, which is going to be going through a lot of different research and how that research applies to the work that we do as learning professionals. If you haven't already added that to your calendar, make sure you mark June 12th and 13th to join us for our next online conference exploring the science of learning. And of course, all this is being conducted by the Learning Guild. If you're not already a member of the Learning Guild, we encourage you to join. We have free membership options that get you access to all of our publications, event discounts, session recordings, webinars, and a whole lot more. We've got over 75,000 people all around the globe who are members of the Guild. And if you're not already one of us, we invite you to join us. Thanks so much. So with that said, that's all my quick updates. I'm looking forward to today's session, and I am going to stop sharing and turn it over to our first presenter, Jason. Hey, Jason, the floor is yours.
Thanks, David. Let me get my file here. Okay, fantastic. Thanks, everyone. My name is Jason Haig. I'll be representing our entire group, Team KPI Measurement, Spring 2024. Our group focused on aligning measurement strategy with xAPI. I want to first give a shout out to our team members here. All the names on the screen at least attended 1 or more meetings over the 9 or 10 week period here. We've had several other lurkers as well. I think we had over 30 subscribed to the weekly meetings we had on Fridays. We had over 60 on our Slack channel. So really, really big interest, and glad everyone participated. Thank you so much to everyone here that was involved. It truly was a team effort. Thanks to Torrance Learning. I'm representing Veracity, of course, and we had Chris Tompkins from Watershed. So thanks for all the insights and collaboration there. It really was a great, great group. So what did we learn and do? This is the slide. I just brought it back up from our first week where we put the invite out there for anyone that wanted to join us. First, we started off with identifying measurement strategy, defining maybe what evaluation framework you wanted to work with. From there, defining the key performance indicators and measures related to that evaluation strategy. And then how do you define what xAPI data you want to collect related to those specific measures? And we also used a resource that a few of us built during the last cohort, and I'll bring that up here in a few slides from now. That's the xAPI measures library. And then finally, we wanted to take these resources that we worked on together and apply them to a real world project. And so that's what we'll do here at the end of this. At the end of my presentation, I'll switch over to Bill from our team, who's going to show how he applied these resources to his project. We actually had several team members, at least a handful, apply this to their own. But given our short time here, we just picked Bill to share his, and he had really the most thorough example. He also has some really neat stuff he did with AI. So going back to why did we establish this group? A good reason here, pointing to e-learning guild research from last fall that came out around the state of data and analytics and L&D. There's a lot of questions in the survey that were answered in this report around the measures, the data sources, types of analytics that people are doing. What were some of those barriers? I like to pull up this resource and mention it because it's good to go look at, but it's also was a big driver for what we did in this group, where the number one barrier to implementing a learning analytics was a lack of a defined measurement strategy. Also, a close second there is lack of resources and skills on the team. So that's really what this group was focused on trying to do, was to help others start somewhere and develop that measurement strategy, and then also make the connection, connect the dots to xAPI strategically. The original group I mentioned started last fall is Becky Goldberg, myself, Meg Fairchild, Jolt, and Amy. And we worked together and put together an xAPI measures library. And we defined several efficiency and effectiveness measures that are common to a lot of different types of L&D content, such as performance support and courses and e-learnings typically found in LMS, some other non-LMS types of stuff too. But we aligned those measures around different frameworks, or allow you to align them with either Kirkpatrick model or LTEM or TDRP. We also had some other attributes in this resource where you define like the possible users that might apply to. And then most importantly, we have some sections in this resource where we define the xAPI statement requirements and how you might go about querying those specific parts of the xAPI data model to get at some of these analytics that you'd like to do. So we kind of map these into different types of measures, efficiency measures, which provide insights into the quantity of content delivered, how much, how long, such as some of these listed here in the screen. I won't read them all off. And then also effectiveness measures, which really provide insights into the quality of the learning content, measuring learner perceptions, their knowledge, skills, and their performance. And then finally, some impact measures, which is really tying it to the broader KPIs and the business goals. Earlier, I mentioned the different kind of evaluation frameworks these were tied to. These were the ones that were in the resource we developed. Of course, there's others out there, but these are the most common, the most popular ones that we started with. And we kind of frame these into these kind of broad categories of efficiency or effectiveness measures to start. Another thing that we realized, kind of going into this from the last cohort, was that we're kind of missing a piece. You could go in and define what you want to maybe measure with xAPI, start thinking about the xAPI data, but it really helps to establish some common statements, some common language around what is measured in support of your organization's business goals. And that's what KPIs really are set to do. They help you set benchmarks and targets to compare and track and aid in decision makings, and they align with your business goals to reinforce how your L&D products are paying off. So a really good way we found to write out KPIs is to kind of frame them using these specific attributes in this SMART acronym, making them specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And so we went through the exercise of defining some resources and templates around how do we articulate our KPIs using the SMART acronym. We started with also a SMART kind of business goal. For example, this one here is an example I gave to the group to start with. Let's say we had a goal of decreasing the number of cybersecurity incidents and increasing the staff's knowledge, skills, and performance to achieve 100% certification by the end of the fiscal year. And that can translate into KPIs, which you can really get into more granularly, talking about the different types of content and assessments related to supporting that broader business goal. And then within that, defining each of those KPIs, you can really determine what are the things you want to measure. You can focus on things such as assessment. What are the things that you could also possibly answer by those questions with the data? In addition, we pulled back in the target audience, who is really going to be the users of these reports and analytics. That is important in framing what you want to measure as well. Another resource we developed was taking that measure and then creating like a spreadsheet to kind of map out what are the different xAPI data elements and properties that we need to collect and track in support of those measures. And then that is it. That's kind of all the resources. That was the big work that we did as a group. And then we also wanted to apply it to a project. As I mentioned earlier, we had several folks from the team that did apply it to their personal projects. And now I'd like to take the time to switch over to Bill from the team to share his specific project and how he applied these resources. I'll
Excellent.
stop presenting here. Yep.
Thanks, Jason. I'll just give it a quick share. All right. Yeah, so as Jason was saying, with the team, they had developed a number of different resources and took us through an approach to work on our projects. In my case, my project was for a accounting on online accounting product for small businesses, and essentially discussing with each of the weekly meetings, working through first the SMART goal. In this particular case, I went with a SMART goal of increasing customer proficiency and product usage within the first 3 months of subscription to enhance customer retention and contribute to 10% increase in annual contract value to new units by the end of the fiscal year. So there was a little bit back and forth trying to make sure that we did meet each of the pieces of the SMART KPI goal there with the specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. But that really helped in conjunction with identifying who the primary audiences were for our measurements for the actual analytics that are going to be coming out. From there, with the team, we also worked on what that SMART goal would then look like with KPIs. So in my case, we defined some KPIs that could potentially help with whether the individuals are actually using the product, whether it's difficult to use, whether they are completing the learning, or whether the learning that actually helped them with the product itself. And of course, later on in the part of the meetings, we broke that out into not just the KPIs, but then into the measures and the possible questions answered by that data. And of course, then we started to map that out into actual statements. So like Jason was saying, the worksheet that he had provided that walks you through identifying what the object ID might be, the activity name, the activity descriptions. From there, I started working through going through the spec, going through the resources available that the team provided, but also, of course, that's published online. I did work through the first statement, but I didn't have too much time, so I taught ChatGPT how to do the rest of the statements for me, which I'll get into in a second. But just to give a kind of a quick idea at what those different KPIs might look in the actual statements there. So I broke them out into a statement for identifying whether there's activity in the community forum to see if there's participation within it, and of course breaking that down. Then the marketing campaign pages, whether there's activities on there, and from there the documentation pages and the information from the LMS itself for the learning completion, and of course in the product itself to see if they're actually making use of the feature that we're teaching them upon. Like I was saying, if you have ChatGPT subscription, you can take a quick look at the tool that I tailored a little bit additionally. So xAPI Statement Crafter. Essentially, after I did it a couple of times and I taught ChatGPT how to do it, and you pose a particular question on breaking down for a particular scenario to develop a statement for you. From there, it produces out a potential statement with an explanation. Of course, it's not perfect, but it's up to our judgment to just kind of verify and vet that the information possible there. And yeah, that's about it for the work that we did together with the team on my particular project.
Excellent. Thank you so much, both Bill and Jason, for that. I wanted to remind everybody before we turn things over to Sarah, who's going to share the work that they've been working on next. Feel free to use the Q&A functionality or the comments functionality. If you have any questions for the group, I'll be following along with there as well. But with that, I will turn it over to Sarah. Sarah, thanks so much.
Well, hey, folks. All right. Mine should be brief because I had the easiest group. It was the group that had the do-it-yourself project. So what we did in our group is we published a set of steps that would allow you to send an xAPI statement with tools that are freely available. So it was an HTML-based test example, and we set it up with just step by step. How do you go through this process to send your first statement? And I wanted to show you two things. So one, in our group, I think we had approximately, let me pull this up. So we had about 35 people join our channel in Slack. And of those 35 people, I had a couple of folks that posted that they were successful. So I'll just show you real quick. This is our little channel for our Build Capable group. I'm only showing you Slack right now because if you haven't done this project yet, it only takes about an hour to complete. So you still have time to go out here and select this little project guide, and it will pop open a window, web browser window that will take you straight into those steps. Now, what I told folks was when you launch these rules, or I'm sorry, these guidelines, to take you through the project, it's going to ask you for some information. So let me show you what that looks like. When you go into launch that example, it's going to take you to a screen that looks like this. So it will take you here. And what I told the group is if you do this project, and I'll tell all of you now, if you decide to go check it out, you can put in any name and email. I don't care what you put in. The only reason why this screen exists is so that it can complete an xAPI statement. So this is your actor data that you're entering here. So I told folks, put in whatever you want. You can put in your real information. We don't use it for anything other than completing an xAPI statement. And so when you put in your information, just put in some stuff here, then it's going to pull up the steps. And when I launch these steps, it's just something that we built in Articulate Rise. I will tell you, I did nothing special in here that is xAPI related. So this was just in Rise, what's the most basic way I could get you this information? But this piece of content, these steps are published for xAPI. So this is hosted out on Learn xAPI, and that is in WordPress. And that's important for a reason, which I'll get to in a moment. So you can just go through these steps, take you through all of it, that's fine. But what we were doing at the same time behind the scenes is we were collecting data about how people were interacting with this. And there's nothing really unique about what Rise was sending because it was just default statements. Oh, Sarah launched a thing. She opened a thing. So I want to show you what those statements look like. And we had this connected to two LRSs. I'm going to show you Veracity first, and then I'm going to tell you why we have the other one. So this is sending those statements out to Veracity. You can actually see what I just did here. And this is where I just logged in, right? So you've got this information over here, and you may see your name in this list because these are all of the folks that have interacted in some kind of way with that piece of content. So there's all sorts of stuff in here. And I can actually filter it down to say, okay, who experienced that landing page? So who actually hit that first landing page where you have to enter your login information? I can also filter it by the actual Rise steps themselves. That's this. So I can see who interacted with that. And that's all fine and good. So I wanted to kind of give you an idea of behind the scenes, if you don't do anything special with xAPI at all, you're going to get some data. Now, the value of this data is questionable depending on what you want to use it for. So Jason just did a great job of explaining why you should start with a plan for how you want to use this data. How we wanted to use this data was just to see who was interacting in this cohort. You know, it's something that we've supported for years, the xAPI cohort, and been part of and gotten the opportunity to work on all sorts of cool projects. And so when we participated this year, I said, you know what, from my perspective, what I want to know is when we put effort into supporting the group, what folks are actually even interacting with it. Was it worth creating a group and even doing this project or making these steps available at all? And so for me, from a business perspective, I wanted to see, was this worth my time? And it gave me a little bit of insight to who's actually going out, who hit the page, but never went further? Who went and actually accessed the steps? And I can see through here who progressed through the steps. So I can actually see, did somebody just go to the first page and close it out, or did they actually go through the steps? And you'll notice if I were to visualize this data, which I haven't done at this point, I could see who came back to it multiple times. And so assuming they use the same actor data, so I was not obsessive about how we collected that data, because, you know, it's a cohort and a fun presentation opportunity, or a fun project opportunity rather. So I wanted to show you the behind the scenes. The other point that I wanted to make with this is that we didn't just collect data from the RISE module itself, the course or content itself. We collected xAPI data from the website. And so I wanted to show you just briefly what our setup is for this, because I think it's really interesting. So I've got a different incognito screen so you can see the logged in version. So in here, this is the back end of Learn xAPI, which is a website that is built in WordPress. And on the back end of this, what you'll notice, and if you're not familiar with WordPress, that's okay, but WordPress allows you to add plugins. And there are a couple of plugins that we use. One of those is Grassblade. And Grassblade is the way that we can collect xAPI data from across the site, not just content in the site, but anything across the site. So if I were to go to the statement viewer here, I'm going to see the same stuff that I just showed you in Veracity. This is their statement viewer. And so if you want to know why did we use Veracity, it's because this is very, very basic, right? It's going to give you xAPI data. It's going to show your statements. You have a statement viewer. But in Veracity, I can do a lot more with that. So, you know, shout out to Veracity for giving us good tooling around xAPI as it relates to the LRS. So in here, if you are using xAPI, you can actually, I can track all sorts of data across the site. So anytime anyone goes to Learn xAPI to the website, I can see where people log in on the site. I can see if they created an account. I can see if they played around with our free module. I can see if they signed up for the course. I can see their project progress through the course. So I can see all kinds of really cool stuff behind the scenes. I just wanted to share that with you because this kind of implementation is super inexpensive. Grassblade, I think, runs around $100 a year to plug that in to WordPress. And so you can set that up for your a whole website and never have an LMS, never have any of that, you know, account pieces that you might normally get stuck with if you're trying to set this up in a learning platform. So just wanted to show those capabilities. I thought it was an interesting like side note or behind the scenes for this particular project. And hopefully you all got an opportunity to go out and play with it. If not, it's still out there and available. I hope you'll get a chance to go through the steps and send some statements and set up your own LRS. And it's super, super easy. I've been able to do this even in conference sessions. So if you do have questions, though, as you go through those steps, you're always welcome to reach out to me, or Sean Putman is also in the channel, and we're happy to help support you with any questions you might have.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe.
Bill, actually, Karen pinged me while Sarah was chatting. You had another project that you had more to share on. Is that correct?
Definitely, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so let's go back to you.
Cool. All right, everybody, I'm back. All right, so when I did start the cohort this time, I did try to develop my own team as well. So this might be a little bit of a kind of a lessons learned, but also kind of a direction that I'm going with the further learning for when it comes to xAPI. So as the name of my team, Novice Coders over Ambitious xAPI Visualization Pipeline says, it was a bit of an over-ambitious project where I was looking to implement a forum, campaign pages, documentation, an LMS with kind of a little tiny ATL, a product that's similar to some of the products that I have in my organization. So a online accounting product with a digital adoption platform built into it to measure the adoption of the product. And of course, as well some pieces to get the LRS working. So in my case, SQL LRS and xAPI for some visualization. I've gotten starting with some of the pieces during this cohort, though you'll see pretty soon where I'm going with the rest of it. And of course, the primary objective with the overall implementation of the scenario was to see if the learning initiatives produced implemented on the LMS or in the documentation pages is actually supporting the customer enablement and also our growth objectives for the product. Going from there, you might be asking, Bill, why are you making this crazy, insane project? So probably the reasons were that I'm really into tech. I'm a program manager by trade on my day job, working in the learning function in my organization. And of course, I'm working on a secure software development program. So I thought this worked really well in kind of bringing all those pieces together to implement something that could also potentially work as a proof of concept for some of the things that we're doing within my organization. I do feel sometimes that our approaches when it comes to measurement feel a little bit disconnected with the various teams, with the data being a bit siloed and not enough of a strategy when it comes to be considering how the data is going to work together or be visualized. So I thought this could be a great way of seeing if we can integrate data and get measurements on the real impact quickly rather than on a quarterly or yearly basis. So of course, when I started off, I thought, hey, might as well just create a team really quick. But then of course, Torrance Learning and also Jason's team, I noticed a lot of the cool things they were doing kind of jive with a lot of things that I'm trying to accomplish in my project. So I joined those as well. So when I first started, I thought with the cohort, I do it on a weekly tempo. But I found that didn't quite work for a project like this. So instead, I relaunched it as a self-paced learning project where anyone could actually dive in to the materials that I'm creating and the kind of the journals that I'm creating on how it's being implemented, and can look at the steady implementation of a measurement strategy, of an xAPI solution, while also navigating the application ecosystem for a product with forums and documentation and marketing pages and LMSs within a SaaS environment. So it's all available on GitHub, so you can take a quick look over there under github.com/BillArakan, and you'll find the repos there. I'll just head over there really quick just to give you a quick view on some of the pieces that I've gotten started with. So like I was saying over here, I got in the branches, the code that I'm working with. I've got in the wiki, the actual project itself and the different pieces, as in the scenario, an explanation of the current to proposed approach for the scenario, and the milestones being developed, and of course the tools being used, and a really long reading list. You can follow along as I'm finishing up each of the experiments if you want to step through each of the activities and build it yourself, or you can go and take a quick look at the code itself and just pull it and run it if you want to take a quick look. For anyone who might want to take a look at where the project is from the status perspective, under projects on that page, you can take a quick look at where I am with finishing it up. Or if you have comments, you can head over to the discussions that I just turned on and ask me any questions about it. So I'll just post updates there about it. Yeah, that's about it for me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing it. We have one last group to share, and representing that group is Will. Will, do you want to share? Bill, if you could stop sharing, and then Bill, if you want to share your screen.
Gotcha. Stop sharing.
Ready?
Perfect.
Let's get that going. All right. Let's see if y'all can see my slide and hear me.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Y'all's projects are so cool. And thanks for making me follow all that. My name is Will Bryant. I am a trainer and a learning designer at UT Southwestern Medical School, Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. We had a group of 40 very knowledgeable and experienced professionals that really like and use Rise 360 and wanted to know how to integrate that with xAPI in our Slack channel. So I wanted to kind of give you a little summary of some of the things we found in our team rising to the challenge with xAPI. So first of all, Rise 360 obviously is the product that we have that's part of our Articulate 360 subscription. Not everybody in our group had a team subscription, so we were trying to kind of share a document in the early phases here and had a little difficulty with that. But eventually we got to a place where we could share Rise resources with one another. One of the big attractions to Rise 360 is that the courses that you make are responsive. They resize automatically for your mobile devices or your iPad or whatever, and you're not bound to that little square that Storyline and similar products kind of constrain you to. And also, it's very easy to brand and reuse your training as templates, and that's why so many of us want to use it. So it's tempting to look in there and when you're publishing a course and see all these different things. You can publish as SCORM 1.2 in 2004 and AICC, and then you have xAPI and CMI 5. So what do you actually get out of that? And that's what kind of Sarah was alluding to earlier when she was talking about hosting these, hosting her Rise pack in WordPress, because just out of the box, you kind of have some limited functionality there. You have a few verbs you could use. It's basically, did a user touch this? Did they experience this? Did they progress through the lessons? And the names of the courses and the lessons are not particularly human readable. So you can change that identifier, but an example, and we just saw some examples in Sarah's table too, something along the lines of Dwight Schrute experience, TVECXUR, it goes on and on. You can change that identifier, by the way, to something that's a little bit more human readable, but the lessons you won't be able to change. So you're still stuck with the M6, U86, whatever. So you kind of have to make that human readable by putting it into a table or having some kind of a Rosetta Stone document that basically tells you what each lesson is and what each course is in your LRS. So our key question was, can Rise 360 actually execute code? And the short answer is no, it can't. It's kind of a walled garden. There's a code snippet feature, and some people are like, what about code snippet? I've never used code snippet. And code snippet is part of Rise 360, but it's not for running code. It's for displaying code. So if you're going to make a Rise about creating code, it's great for that, but it doesn't actually run code and can't. So we really had to think outside the box. And if you Google xAPI and Rise, one of the best hits you're going to find are some YouTube videos. They're made by somebody you may know. This is Mel Milloway. About 5 years ago, she posted 2 YouTube videos that describe how xAPI can capture page views, lesson views, some light interactions with tabs and accordions and so on. And Mel, by the way, is somebody who was on the advisory board of the Learning Guild when it was still the e-learning guild, and has presented at DevLearn. She's got a great blog that's still out there called Mel's Learning Lab. Highly encourage you to go check out Mel's blog. She's got a lot of cool stuff on there about xAPI and other things. She's worked for a lot of companies that like Miro Academy and JLL and Johnson & Johnson and so on. But now she works for Amazon, a company you may have heard of, and she works for the richest man in the world. So she did not have time to share her expertise with us on this project and hasn't done a lot of xAPI stuff in the last couple of years. But it was interesting to look at her solution. Basically, what she would have you do would be to export your Rise course to HTML first. So she's putting it basically into web pages and then adding the script calls and the code later. And what she's essentially doing basically is not really using Rise so much as a tool to create e-learning, but as an authoring app to make these responsive web pages, and then adding the functionality manually after the fact. So the Rise course itself isn't in an LMS, and it doesn't really have access to the same variables like your learner name, learner ID, and those things that you might want to pull from an LMS. And then when we started looking at it even a little further, again, these are just tutorials on kind of basically how to do this sort of stuff. The page views and the scripting, they required the entire URL. They weren't relative URLs. So if you moved your course, you'd have to update each little thing, even if it was just for a tab or for an accordion or whatever. You'd have to put full URLs into the coding in the HTML on the index page. Also, the tab and accordion labels never came through. So like they're not passed through the LRS. So like you could call something a tab, or you could call something an accordion, or you could even call it the, you know, accordion 1, accordion 2, or whatever. And then you could have them numbered, but it didn't actually pass the labels through to the LRS. And in addition, it never really actually tracks your hitting the first tab or the first accordion, because those are open by default. So in other words, if you clicked on tab 3 and then tab 1, it would register both of those interactions. But you know, back on tab 1. But if you only click tab 3, it would not register that you saw tab 1, because it was already open when you went to the page. And then lastly, the script that she has on her GitHub that basically makes the whole thing work, the wrapper, stores your LRS secret key in plain text as part of the script. So it's not hidden or obfuscated in any way. And so obviously we don't want users to be able to send junk data to our LRS. So that was something that we would like to have known a little bit more about in terms of how you might be able to hide or obfuscate that information and not just have it out there in plain text. So it's kind of a mixed bag. We were hoping that Rise 360 might be able to just send xAPI statements from within an LMS, like it seems like it might do. We also want to track quiz answers, video plays and completions, audio plays and completions, things like that, and didn't really have a great guide or a resource to show like how we would find those in CSS classes. What if it was an embedded video, etc. And we certainly would have preferred that the learner ID or actor was easily obtained in Rise without having to code or without having to use a third-party solution. And something we did look at, and we got some kind of interesting information. You know, Storyline can run code, and you can put a storyline block inside Rise. So, you know, the next question was, well, can an embedded storyline block just run the code, right? And the answer is yes, it can actually. It does require user interaction, so it's not going to run on its own, right? Just by virtue of being there. You have to click on it. And in fact, we received some reports. We didn't actually try this, but we've heard that on mobile devices, a user actually has to, that displays a play button on those blocks, and the user actually has to click through the play button and then interact with the block, and then it runs your code. So not ideal situations in either case. Also, the embedded storyline block, if you use it, it's not technically hosted, or it is technically hosted on Articulate servers and not in your LMS. So if your Rise is in your LMS, it's just running a little iframe, and that storyline block is actually in Review 360. So it's not connected in any way to your LMS, and it's not going to have access to your LMS data like the learner name. And there's really no mechanism to pass variables from the storyline to the Rise 360 if you embed it. Now, we did get a really interesting contribution from Matt Cleaver, who mentioned a third-party solution, paid solution, that does allow you to do this. That is called xAPI.ly, or xAPI, maybe. I'm probably butchering that. But anyway, it seemed like an interesting solution. We were trying to do something kind of free and sort of open source, but definitely would be open to trying a third-party solution if that actually matches, you know, kind of our needs. Then we started getting really wacky with it and saying, well, what if you just embedded an HTML block? You can embed anything, right? You can use that embed code and just have a little web page inside a web page. The HTML block could even be a Rise course in an LMS, you know, and then have a little block in there that's also made by a Rise course. So we were really getting deep and like thinking about these ways of kind of nesting different types of e-learning to get what we got. But basically the end all be all of the project was, it doesn't really do what we thought it would do out of the box. For true xAPI functionality, Rise courses really do need to be able to run code. And it would certainly be better if it did that out of the box, and you didn't have to do these external hacks and nesting and using third-party tools, et cetera, to get to where you want to go. I would say in the next API cohort, this group would probably be more amenable to trying some of these things. We were really kind of experimenting and learning on our own. We had a lot of really great people in there. And so I did want to recognize some of the folks on our team. I went ahead and listed everybody, whether you were a lurker or you actually contributed to the conversations. They're all there. And we also had Karen and Jason and Megan kind of popping in every now and then just to kind of check on us. So I do appreciate that. And I appreciate all your time. I want to also say that we did reach out to Articulate, and we tried to get them to kind of engage with us and maybe do an Ask Me Anything or something like that. We reached out to Carrie Munns, we reached out to Ginger Swart and some of those folks, and we did not hear back from them. So you know, the Learning in HR Tech conference is in a couple of weeks. We know that Bianca Woods and Melissa Trimble and Madison McCartney and some other folks from Articulate will be there. So, you know, I know that they want, it's in their business interest to compete in the AI space and deliver return on investments. But I do hope that Articulate and folks are listening to learning designers and to innovators that are ready to kind of move beyond SCORM and demonstrate the advantages of all of our new e-learning tech. And that's it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I did see a couple of questions come in through chat while you were talking there. Well, first one was, and I think this was told you, can you speak a little bit more on the 7 verbs that you can use in RISE?
So there is a page, I don't have it handy, but there's a page that shows which verbs you can use in RISE and which ones you can only use in Storyline. And I believe, I was just looking at it yesterday, I could drop the link in the chat in a bit if I do some searching, but I believe there's one verb that you can only use in RISE and one verb that you can only use in Storyline. And the one in Storyline is exit or left. I think it's when you leave a slide that's particular to that. And I believe the one that's unique to RISE is the progressed one, the one that Sarah was showing, where you're basically moving forward in a page and not necessarily leaving a slide. So it's kind of the same thing. It's just a different verb that's used for Storyline as opposed to RISE.
Excellent. And there was a question / comment also thrown in here from Brian, asking if you looked at, and I think, forgive me, the font's small, like h5p.com or HSP, but I think it's H5P. Brian, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about the H5P. And it's a commercial paid use. It's open source and has basic xAPI functionalities built in. Just curious if you looked at that at all.
Terrific. Have not. That's a great tip. Thank you, Bill. That's great. That's awesome. Or Brian, actually. I guess. Yeah.
Brian, yes. Excellent. All right. Well, those are the only other questions that were in here. I think that's a very appropriate one for us to land on at the close of our session here, because it's very representative of everything that we do in the xAPI cohort at the Guild, of people sharing with one another so that we can all learn from each other and be stronger as a result. So I want to thank everybody here for their contributions, not only Bill, Will, Sarah, and Jason, but also all of you who are here contributing in the chat and contributing throughout the xAPI cohort. Thank you so much for being a part of our cohort and helping us push the industry forward and help everyone's adoption of xAPI. There are no additional questions in the chat, so a virtual round of applause to Will, Bill, Sarah, and Jason for sharing their stories here today. Thank you all for your time here today, and we will see you next week, week 12, for our closing week of the Spring xAPI cohort. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.